September 29th, 1943. Before dawn, a prisoner crouches in a ravine outside Kiev, fingers moving through a dead man's coat. The guards think he's hunting gold. He finds a key, ordinary iron, worn smooth. He palms it, closes his fist, and keeps moving. You don't react down here. Not if you want to live another hour. This is Babyn Yar. 2 years ago, the Nazis shot 33,771 people in this ravine in 48 hours. Now the Red Army is closing in, and the SS has chained 327 prisoners to one job: dig up the dead, burn them, grind the bones, scatter the ash, erase the evidence. The prisoners understand the math immediately. When the burning ends, they're next. You don't leave witnesses. You destroy the evidence twice. But here's what the SS never calculated. They ordered prisoners to search every corpse for valuables. The victims had walked here from their homes and locked their doors. Their pockets were full of keys. The Nazis built a machine to erase a massacre, then handed the men inside it the tools to escape. How did keys from the dead unlock a Nazi death camp? And why did the plan to silence every witness create the ones who mattered most? 1943. August 18th, inside Syrets concentration camp on the northwest edge of Kyiv. The morning starts the way every morning starts, with shouting, hunger, and the slow arithmetic of survival. How long can you stand? How long can you work? How long until your name is called? Then the camp gates open, and a different kind of noise walks in: SS officers. Not the usual guards who beat you out of habit. The kind who arrive when something classified is about to begin. They don't announce a job, they announce a selection. About 300 prisoners are pulled out. Not volunteers, not the strongest, just bodies the camp can spare, bodies that can be replaced. Then leg irons are brought out, heavy, industrial, the kind you'd bolt onto an animal you're terrified will run. Metal clamps bite around ankles, bolts cinch down, chains hang between the legs. Every step becomes a reminder: your body belongs to someone else now. The prisoners are marched out of the main camp and delivered to earthen bunkers, dark pits dug into the ground, ringed with barbed wire. Machine gun towers flank each entrance. You build that geometry when you're not guarding workers, you're guarding secrets. The next morning, August 19th, the prisoners are marched under heavy guard to a ravine just outside the city. Babyn Yar, some of them know the name, most don't yet. It looks like a wound in the earth, a long cut with steep sides, choked with brush and packed dirt, and a silence that's wrong, too heavy for an empty place. The Nazis hand out shovels and order them to dig. At first, it's just soil, layers of packed earth, the kind of work a camp does 1,000 times. Then the shovel hits something that isn't soil, a cloth, a bone, a hand still wearing a ring, and the work stops being labor and becomes something else entirely. This isn't archaeology. This is an exhumation of murder. Every layer reveals clothing, personal items, fragments of lives interrupted. The prisoners understand immediately what this place is: not a construction site. 2 years earlier, September 29th and 30th, 1941, this ravine had become one of the largest mass shooting sites in German-occupied Europe. Jews were marched here, forced to undress, and murdered at the edge. German records from those 2 days alone report 33,771 people killed. The shootings didn't stop after September 30th. They continued for 2 years. Jews, Roma, Soviet prisoners of war, psychiatric patients, civilians, the total murdered at Babyn Yar under German occupation is estimated around 100,000. Now, in the summer of 1943, the Red Army is grinding west toward Kyiv. The front is moving. The Nazis can feel the ground shifting, and they do what they always do when the future looks dangerous. They try to erase the past. The cover-up has a bureaucratic name: Sonderaction 1005, Special Operation 1005. Led by SS Standartenführer Paul Blobel, the program had been running since 1942 at massacre sites across occupied territory, exhuming mass graves, burning remains, grinding bones, scattering ash, and flattening the land, turning murder into landscape. And the people forced to do it? Prisoners, shackled, starved, watched. Because the Nazis understand a brutal equation. The men who touch the evidence become evidence, so the evidence must be destroyed twice. First, the bodies in the ravine, then the bodies are burning. The prisoners understand the trap within days. You don't need a memo when the guards start talking about finishing the job. You hear it in the way they count heads at roll call. You see it in the way they look at you like you're already gone. The work itself becomes the countdown to execution. Work too fast, and you reach the end sooner. Work too slow, and you get shot for sabotage. There is no pace that leads to survival, only delay, only luck, only an opening that doesn't exist yet. By night, the prisoners are locked back into the bunkers. The gate closes. The lock turns. The machine gun settles into its nest. 300 men, chained, buried alive in a pit beside a massacre. And in the darkness, one question circulates like a fever. If the job ends with our death, where do we find time to escape? What could the dead possibly offer men who are already scheduled to die? And why would the Nazis hand their prisoners the one chance to survive without even knowing it? The first pyre is not a fire, it's architecture. Granite slabs from gravestones, iron grates from the cemetery fence, stacks of firewood. Then bodies, then more wood, then more bodies. A layered tower, built by prisoners whose hands shake from hunger, under guards who supervise it like a construction project. You can tell everything about a regime by how it organizes horror. This one schedules it. Horror with timesheets. The prisoners work 12 to 15 hours a day. Shackles clink with every step. Excavators speed the digging. The living are divided into crews. One crew exhumed. One crew drags. One crew stacks. One crew plunders, rings, earrings, anything hidden in clothing. Gold teeth pried from jaws because even inside a cover-up, profit still matters. The bodies are doused with fuel. The fire is lit. When it catches, the ravine stops being a place and becomes a furnace. When it dies down, there's still work. Bones are smashed machines when the Germans want speed, mallets and brute force when they don't, until nothing recognizably human remains. Ash is scattered across the ravine. The land is cleaned, like you can mop a ravine and call it done. The guards supervise with clipboards. They track tonnage like factory managers. How many bodies are processed per day? How much fuel is consumed? How many kilograms of ash produced? The horror has spreadsheets. Every morning, the SS arrive with new quotas. Every evening, they inspect the day's work like quality control. The prisoners learn to recognize the rhythm. When excavators slow down, the end is approaching. When the guards start burning documents in barrels beside the ravine, the final phase is beginning. When officers arrive who weren't there before, measure the site with surveying equipment, flattening the terrain, that's when you know the countdown has started. Because once the land looks normal again, the only evidence left is walking around in leg irons. And every time ash leaves their hands, the prisoners feel the walls closing. If you're watching this from safety, you might ask, why not just run? They're shackled. They're watched from towers. They're boxed in by wire. And even if they break out, they're deep inside occupied territory, starving, filthy, branded by the stench of cremation, hiding while wearing a signal flare. So they survive the day. They survive the night. And then something starts happening that the guards do not anticipate. The Nazis ordered the prisoners to plunder the corpses. That means every prisoner's hands are inside pockets, belts, linings, and hidden places where people tucked the last things they owned. And sometimes, a prisoner's fingers close around something small and metal, a key. At first, it's meaningless. A dead man doesn't need a key, but prisoners need hope. Sometimes hope looks like metal that once opened a door. These keys become talismans before they become tools. A reminder that the people in this ravine lived in homes, had routines, locked doors they expected to unlock again. Then a prisoner hides one, then another. Keys of different sizes, keys to apartments, trunks, doors that will never open again. And at night, those keys become something else, not currency, but possibility. A prisoner tests one against the lock on his leg iron. Doesn't fit. Another, too small. Another. Click. The shackle opens. He closes it again before anyone can see, because the only thing more dangerous than being chained is being caught with a chain that can open. And now 2 prisoners lie awake in the dark, staring at the same impossible object, a leg iron that unlocks. And if one can unlock, you start thinking in numbers. Not 1 man, not 10, all of them. If you hit the like button and subscribe, you help this channel keep telling stories the world tried to bury. Now back to the bunker. So the prisoners begin collecting more than keys. Wire, scrap metal, broken tools, anything that can pry, pick, cut, or strike. The dead become their supply depot. But keys are not a plan. Keys are proof that a plan might be possible. And in a place built to destroy evidence, possible is the most dangerous word you can think of. So they don't say it. They carry it. Until one question takes over the bunker. If the dead can open our chain, can the dead open the gate? A conspiracy in a death pit has one rule: you don't tell people. Not because you don't trust them, but because you can't afford to trust the wrong one. Syrets camp has informants. Every camp does. Men who trade whispers for bread. Men who report names to live one more day. So the prisoners build the plan the way they build everything now, in fragments. A nod while dragging a body. A sentence spoken with backs turned. A warning passed through a cough. This is how rebellion looks when you are chained. Step 1. Collect everything. Every key was found in a pocket. Every wire pulled from a fence. Every metal scrap that can become a pick. Hammers, screwdrivers, pliers, anything heavy enough to strike, sharp enough to pierce, thin enough to slip into a lock. None of this happens in one dramatic sweep. It happens in tiny acts of theft while the guards are looking for gold. And every act carries a death sentence because the shackles are inspected. Morning and night. The guards don't just count prisoners. They check the metal. They check the bolts. They probe for tampering. So the prisoners practice in the dark, picking locks by feel, hiding an unlocked shackle so it still looks closed, refastening it before daylight. Locks aren't standardized. Keys don't match. Hands shake. Light barely exists. One bad move snaps a tool, draws attention, or leaves a scratch a guard notices at dawn. Yet, night after night, more men learn how. A key turns here. A wire pick works there. One prisoner teaches another, but never in a way that looks like teaching. Because if you see 2 men crouched together close enough to share breath, that's a meeting. And meetings get people killed. Then comes the lock that changes everything. The bunker gate. The thing that turns a prison into a tomb each night, locked at dark, opened at dawn, guarded by a machine gun like it's guarding a vault. A key to that gate would rewrite the math entirely. And on September 27, 1943, a prisoner named Yakov Kaper found exactly that, not in a toolbox, but in a corpse. A key to the lock of the dugout. He tests it during the day, quietly, like a man checking the time. It works. Now the plan shifts from maybe to when. Because it's one thing to have free ankles inside a locked bunker. It's another to have a door that can swing open. But the prisoners still face a problem with no key solves. Coordination. This plan dies if it's early. It dies if it's late. It dies if half the bunker moves and the other half hesitates. Machine guns don't care about bravery in waves. Machine guns care about targets. So the prisoners decide everyone moves at once. No stagger, no hesitation. If they wait, they're executed when the job ends. If they run in groups, they're picked off in sequence. Their only chance is to become too many targets for the guns to track a stampede, a human blackout, a burst of chaos so sudden the guards can't form a line, can't aim, can't decide where to shoot first. It's not a clever plan. It's a plan that admits the truth. They are unarmed prisoners charging armed men. Their best weapon is surprise multiplied by 300 bodies. So they pick the hour. Before dawn, when guards are tired and light is thin. When a sentry might blink at the wrong second. But the prisoners don't choose the date. The calendar chooses it for them. By late September, the exhumations are nearly finished. The ash is spreading. The ravine is being leveled, and Syrets camp is changing. Prisoners are being transferred to Germany. Those not selected for transport are shot. The men in the bunker don't need to overhear the orders to read the signal. The Nazis are cleaning houses. And when the Nazis clean house, the special unit that knows their worst secret is the last thing they want breathing. Every day the prisoners work, the fuse gets shorter. Every pyre they light brings their own end closer. On September 28th, the guards issued an order that sounds like routine to heat the ovens again. To the prisoners, it sounds like a funeral invitation, because if the evidence is almost gone, the next thing to burn is them. So the question flips, not can they escape, but can they escape before sunrise? Because if they wait one more day, they may not get another night. What does it look like when 300 shackled men try to pour through a single gate into machine gun fire? And what happens in the 4 seconds between the lock clicking open and the first burst of gunfire? September 29th, 1943. Before dawn, the bunker is awake without moving. Men lie shoulder to shoulder in blackness, listening for boots outside, listening for the lock, listening for the moment the world changes. Some pray. Some don't waste their breath. Hours earlier, they finalize the details. Who opens which lock? Who moves first? Who carries the few weapons they've assembled, hammers stolen from bone-crushing duty, stones pocketed from the ravine floor, a single rusty blade pried from equipment? They've assigned roles without ever holding a meeting. The strongest men will hit the guards first. The fastest will clear the wall. The rest will create chaos, enough bodies moving in enough directions that the machine gun can't choose. It's not a strategy born from training. It's a strategy born from desperation. They've watched guards for weeks. Noted shift changes, timed patrol rotations, memorized the 3 seconds between when the tower guard lights a cigarette and when he looks back down. The closest thing to a speech is a whispered sentence passed along the floor like a lit match. When it opens, we run. The signal is not heroic, it's practical. A sound, a touch, a word you can't mistake. In the dark, hands work locks. Keys slide into keyholes, wire probes in circles. A shackle opens, then closes again, held in place so it looks untouched. Another opens, then another. One prisoner has a different tool, a pair of rusty scissors he found in a dead woman's coat pocket days earlier. It's absurd, one of those details that feels invented until you remember nothing about this was written for anyone's comfort. He forces the lock on his leg irons. Metal bends, the iron gives. Legs that forgot how to move suddenly have options. Then comes the dugout door, the lock that seals the bunker into a coffin every night. Caper's key meets it. For a second, nobody breathes. The lock gives, and the door swings. For one heartbeat, 300 men stand at a threshold they never thought they'd cross. Then, survival instinct takes over, and 300 prisoners surge out like water breaching a dam. The guards freeze not from mercy, but because their brains need a moment to accept what their eyes are seeing. Prisoners aren't supposed to move like this. Prisoners shuffle, freeze, beg. Instead, prisoners crash into the first line of guards with hammers, stones, bare fists, anything that can become a weapon for 3 seconds. You can't picture it cleanly because it isn't clean. Bodies colliding in the dark. A guard is screaming because he's accustomed to being feared, and now he's being pinned. A prisoner ripping at a rifle strap like it's the last thing between him and breathing tomorrow. Above them, the machine gun on the tower swings. Then it opens up. The night tears. Tracers stitch the air. Men drop. The crowd doesn't stop because stopping is dying. They run toward the cemetery wall, the only line that isn't straight into the gun. Some climb, some boost others, some fall back into the crush. That is the entire strategy. Make it impossible to aim, make it too fast, too many, too chaotic. The SS recover from shock and do what they're trained to do. They kill. By the time the first gray light reaches the sky, bodies are everywhere. 280 men are dead, but not all of them. A small group clears the wall, 12 according to one account. Other sources say 14 or as many as 18. The exact number is uncertain because the escape isn't a tally, it's a scatter. Men sprint into brush, into alleys, into the edges of Kyiv, where a wrong turn means a patrol and a bullet. They don't run together. Together as a target. They run like sparks thrown off a fire. Behind them, the shooting thins. Not because the Nazis stop hunting, because the Nazis switch from firing into a swarm to chasing individuals. And that chase is where most escapes end. So if you are one of the men who cleared the wall, you face one last problem. You are free. For the first time in weeks, your legs are not chained. And yet every road leads through enemy territory. Where do you hide when you smell like a grave? Who shelters you when helping you is a death sentence? The Nazis regain control of the ravine the way they regain control of everything, with bullets. The prisoners who are recaptured or who never made it past the gate are erased. That was always the point. The exhumations and cremations continued through the end of September 1943. Bones are pulverized. Ash is spread. The ground is made to look ordinary again. If you are a Nazi officer writing a report, this is completed. Crime committed, site cleaned, witnesses removed. But history doesn't care about your paperwork. Some prisoners who cleared the wall did not die that morning. They crawl into ditches, wedge themselves into basements, press into pipes and sheds, anywhere the city's geometry can swallow a man. And they do it while the search is still hot, while patrols sweep block by block, while every stranger's glance could be a death sentence. You might assume nobody would help them. You would be wrong. Some locals shelter them anyway, not because it's safe, but because the alternative is letting the Nazis finish the job twice. Days pass, then weeks. On November 6, 1943, the Red Army retook Kyiv. Investigators arrive. Commissions form. Questions pour in fast. 3 days after liberation, on November 9th, a survivor named Davidov walks into an investigator's office and begins talking about the ravine, the camp, the bunker, the burning, the locks, the escape. He is not describing rumors. He is describing things he touched with his own hands. Other survivors step forward: Kaper, Ostrovsky, Budnik. Others, depending on which account you read. Even the number of survivors stays contested. Some sources say 12, others say 14. Others count as many as 18. But the core fact never shifts. A handful of prisoners survive a job designed to leave 0 witnesses. And those survivors become a problem for every lie built on "no one saw." Foreign correspondents arrive at Babin Yar after liberation. In a bulldozed landscape, they find fragments of shoes, bone shards, residue of methodical erasure. Then they meet the men who were forced to scrub witness points. A witness speaks. "We were made to burn the bodies here." Within a few years, those survivor testimonies travel all the way to the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, entering the record of the largest war crimes prosecution in history. This is why the escape matters beyond survival. Because the Nazis don't just try to murder people at Babin Yar. They try to murder memories. They don't want graves. Graves are evidence. They don't want witnesses. Witnesses are evidence. So they force prisoners to dig, burn, grind, scatter, and flatten until even the earth forgets. And that is exactly where their logic collapses. To destroy evidence, they need labor. To get labor, they keep prisoners alive, creating witnesses. To silence witnesses, they shackle them beside the crime, which means the prisoners spend weeks living inside the evidence. Against every intention, the Nazis give them time. Time to notice patterns, time to steal scraps, time to find keys and tools hidden in pockets never meant to hold hope, time to learn the dead carry the means of escape, a key from a pocket, scissors from a coat, a lock that turns. Then 300 prisoners surge out on the exact date, September 29th, 2 years to the day after the massacre began. The Nazis lit pyres to erase Babin Yar. Instead, they lit the fuse on their own failure. Because you can burn bodies, you can crush bones, you can scatter ash across a ravine, but you cannot burn testimony out of a living mind. And once even a handful escape, the cover-up doesn't just fail, it backfires. It manufactures the most credible witnesses imaginable, the men forced to handle the evidence with their own hands. So when you hear the phrase "keys from the dead," it isn't poetry, it's mechanics. It's a lock, an accident, a dead person's last unintended gift. They were chosen to disappear so the crime could disappear with them. Instead, the dead left behind keys, and the living became the evidence. And if you want to know what other truths survived because the people who carried them refused to stay buried, that story is waiting for you right here.